The movie begins with a bear named Bramble in a superhero costume. He flies into the earth and fights several villains. A giant trash monster emerges and tries to attack some animals, but he fights and defeats the monster. The monster explodes, and Bramble makes a dramatic pose. He laughs as people surround him and call him a hero, but regains his senses as the animals stare at him while he stands on some garbage. A human named Vic yells at Bramble and instructs him to clean the garbage. Bramble watches his elder brother Briar help out, and Vic appreciates him. He promises to give Bramble ice cream if he cleans the garbage immediately, and Bramble runs around and cleans. He almost finishes cleaning but makes a bigger mess. He complains and says he is hungry, and Briar tells Vic he will clean the trash. Bramble celebrates as he runs to get ice cream but bumps into the other animals. Meanwhile, several fighter jets pursue a strange spacecraft as it evades them. A missile silo emerges from the water, and a missile shoots out of it. It flies to the spacecraft and hits it, causing it to crash to the ground. Bramble walks in the woods as the craft crashes. A piece of it flies out, and Bramble goes to see what it is. He touches the strange object, and as he places his eye on it, it scans and imputes knowledge into his brain. Bramble realizes he knows a lot and runs away as he panics. The spacecraft opens, and an alien emerges. Bramble runs to Vic's house and retrieves his ice cream. The alien enters the room, and Bramble hides as he looks around. It appears behind him and startles him as he throws his ice cream on a chair. The alien informs Bramble that his ship's core fused with his brain and drags him with his alien tech. Bramble breaks free and yells at the alien. He refuses to follow him, and the alien knocks him down, but the fridge falls on him. Bramble runs out and returns with the others, who enter the room and see a cute cat. Vic and Briar throw Bramble out of the house and yell at him for the mess he made. Bramble gets confused, but the cat talks and reveals himself to be the alien. It walks around him and says he needs Bramble to activate his spaceship because its core is fused with his brain. Bramble refuses to help the alien named Avi, so Avi destroys the cardboard box he's inside. He covers himself with dirt and puts a stick in Bramble's hand. Avi wails in pain, and Briar and Vic rush out. They accuse Bramble of attacking him and take him inside. Vic and Briar take care of the cat and leave to get more food. Avi threatens Bramble, but he refuses to follow him. Meanwhile, Mr. and Mrs. Cruz, two weapons dealers, walk into a room and stare at a large but damaged robot named the Quasar. They instruct their men to expand their search and release the drones. Bramble walks through the woods, and Avi makes him fall and hits his head. He annoys Bramble several times, and Bramble eventually decides to activate his ship. Vic, Briar, and the others go to the town while Bramble stays with Avi. Avi activates his suit's arm, but a drone sees him. He destroys the drone, but several men arrive and attack him. He defeats the men with his suit while Bramble runs away. Avi tells Bramble that the soldiers will attack his friends if he doesn't help. He makes a cute face, and Bramble reluctantly agrees to activate the ship. Avi explains how to locate his ship and says he needs to concentrate. He eventually finds it, and they realize it's on a van passing by. Avi and Bramble rush to the van while the damaged drone sends videos to Mr. Cruz. He smashes a monitor but realizes it's expensive and blames a soldier. Bramble and Avi arrive in the town and see the van. Avi tries rushing to it, but Bramble stops him and says humans are dangerous. He puts on a disguise, and as they get close, the disguise gets blown away, and Bramble runs and hides. Avi gets annoyed and rushes out. He gets overwhelmed by the humans and destroys a television in anger. Some officers try to capture him, but his armor runs out of power. Bramble grabs him, and Briar and the others see them as they run. Briar, Vic, and the others pursue them but get stuck in concrete. Bramble pretends to be a dog, and the police pass him. They continue their search and find the spaceship in a dumpster. The dump owners prepare to crush the spaceship and run inside to watch a lottery. Bramble and Avi stop the machine and enter the ship. Avi instructs Bramble on operating the ship while he charges his suit. The men realize the machine is off, and they turn it on. Avi emerges, and they knock themselves out as they attack him. Bramble learns how to fly the ship, and they escape just before it falls into the crusher. Briar and the others free themselves from the cement, and Vic informs them that his truck got towed because he parked wrongly. Bramble and Avi land on a rooftop, and Bramble sees the others. He rushes to explain what happened but overhears their conversation and gets sad as Briar agrees to be more strict with him. Avi sits on the ship and watches videos of his parents. He hears a strange noise and sees Bramble eating on a staircase. They eat together, and Bramble says his friends are still angry at him. While eating, Mr. Cruz breaks through the wall and into the staircase. Bramble and Avi run to the ship and fly away. While flying the ship, Bramble gets a vision and sees the other parts of Avi's ship. Mr. and Mrs. Cruz's giant aircraft emerges, and several jets fly out of it. Avi controls the ship and breaks into the aircraft. They enter the room with other parts, and Bramble merges them while Avi runs out of the room. He defeats several soldiers as he runs and enters a dark room. He sees a necklace and tries retrieving it, but a strange bug pushes him away. Mrs. Cruz emerges and says she knows his secret. She tells him she wants a quasar, and Avi remembers the destruction it caused. He tells them they won't be able to control, but Mrs. Cruz refuses to listen. Mr. Cruz arrives, and they attack Avi and knock him down. Bramble enters the room with the ship and flies around. He breaks out of the aircraft, and Mr. and Mrs. Cruz realize that Avi and the necklace are gone. Avi instructs Bramble to fly to the South Pole. Mr. Cruz breaks into the ship and attacks Avi. He drops the necklace off the ship and hits Mr. Cruz out. They descend as they try to retrieve the necklace, and Mrs. Cruz throws several explosives at them. Bramble sees strange calculations and uses them to dodge the debris. Mr. Cruz tries to attack Bramble, but Bramble achieves core synchronism with the ship. The ship transforms into a robot, and Bramble punches Mr. Cruz through several buildings. Bramble and Avi fly away, but the aircraft emerges behind them. Mrs. Cruz activates all its missiles and shoots them. The missiles pursue Avi and Bramble, and they decide to fly into space. The missiles freeze and fall back to Earth as they escape. They move around the solar system as they have fun. Bramble and Avi sit on the moon and talk. Avi tells him that his species, the Ryotans, originated from Earth millions of years ago. Their civilization grew as they found a mysterious energy source and damaged the Earth as they mined it. The Ryotans fled Earth as it was severely damaged. He says they couldn't find a new planet, and a black hole struck their fleet. Avi's parents put him on a ship, and he escaped the black hole. He floats in space for a long time and eventually comes across Earth. Avi says the black hole flung them millions of years into the future, so Earth was completely healed. Bramble hugs Avi and tries to cheer him up. Avi says his parents could still be alive, and they decide to go to the South Pole. Meanwhile, Mr. Cruz informs Mrs. Cruz that they will be bankrupt because no one wants to buy their weapons. Mrs. Cruz says they won't need normal weapons anymore if they acquire a quasar. They enter a room where Briar and the others are kept and lie to them that an alien has kidnapped Bramble. They sing and dance as they talk about how Avi has been tricking them. They ask Briar and the others to join their team to stop Avi, and they agree. Bramble and Avi knock out several soldiers as they enter a cave. They float to an ice wall, and Avi uses the necklace to open it. They enter a hidden city, and Avi informs them they created a shield over the city because the city contains their vital information. They see a giant tower called the Lighthouse, and Avi says it can send signals into deep space. Several bugs emerge from the ship and fly away, as Bramble and Avi are unaware. They float through the city, and Avi recalls his memories from when he was on Earth. Meanwhile, the bugs fly to the object producing the shield and deactivate it. A large explosion occurs, and the machine falls to the ground. Mr. and Mrs. Cruz arrive with their men and fly above the giant hole. They enter the city with their soldiers, and Avi realizes they are following them to retrieve a quasar. Bramble controls the ship and defeats the jets that attack them. They enter the tunnel and pursue Mr. and Mrs. Cruz. Avi tells Bramble that only a person with a strong will can control a quasar because it reveals a person's darkest secrets. While running, Briar shoots Bramble and continues running. Bramble runs after him and gets separated from Avi. Bramble runs into a room and gets surrounded by his friends as they shoot him. He opens the suit and reveals that he wasn't kidnapped. Avi runs to the soldiers and tries to attack them, but Mr. and Mrs. Cruz emerge and knock him out. Bramble runs with the others, and they meet the soldiers. Mr. Cruz threatens to kill Avi if they continue moving, and Mrs. Cruz dismantles the ship. The soldiers laugh at Bramble as Mr. Cruz insults him. Mrs. Cruz walks to the quasar, but Avi stands up and informs them that everyone will die if she activates it. Avi says there isn't a planet like Earth in the universe, but Mrs. Cruz refuses to listen. She says the Ryotans destroyed Earth and don't have the right to tell her what to do. She then says that she will rule the world with the power of the quasar, and no one will stand in her way. She steps into the quasar and activates it. Avi rushes to Mr. Cruz and holds him as he instructs Bramble to use the core to shut down the quasar. Bramble runs to it but trips on a rock and falls to the ground. The quasar stands and causes some debris to fall. Mr. Cruz congratulates his wife for activating the quasar, but she attacks everyone and destroys their aircraft. Rocks fall on Briar, and Bramble tries to save him, but more rocks fall on him. The quasar causes a lot of destruction, and Bramble panics because he thinks Briar is dead. He blames himself for their situation, and Briar tells him he is kind and that he is proud of who he has become. Bramble remembers his friends and gets motivated. He reassembles the ship and removes everyone from the rubble. He flies around as he saves the people and flies to the quasar as it tries to destroy the lighthouse. Bramble controls the buildings and uses them to fight. The quasar grabs and throws him to the ground, but the soldiers attack it. It sends out a surge of energy that sends everyone to the ground. Bramble re-emerges and forms a giant bear with rocks. He fights and defeats the quasar but sees Mrs. Cruz's memories as he is about to destroy it. Bramble floats into the quasar and holds Mrs. Cruz while assuring her that everything will be okay. Mr. Cruz appears in her memories, and she realizes he has been with her since they were children. Bramble and Mrs. Cruz emerge from the quasar, and Bramble makes a dramatic pose as it explodes. He reunites with his friends as they say he is amazing. Avi uses the lighthouse to send a signal into space. Later, Bramble successfully organizes the trash, and Vic tells him he can have ice cream. He rushes to the house and sees pictures of Avi and his parents. The lights flicker, and the windows close as Avi enters the house. The end. Thank you for watching. Check out these other videos and make sure to subscribe and tap the bell to be notified about our latest videos. See you next time.